I never thought I'd live long enough for my back to ache and my mind to sharpen at the same time. But here I am, 77 years old and still running a business. While others my age take up knitting or sightseeing, I'm up at 5:30 every morning. Sunlight streams through the curtains. I shower, stretch, and eat a sensible breakfast. Black coffee, avocado toast, maybe a poached egg. Then the driver takes me to Baxter Printing, a company I built from a single press in our garage into a 3-story operation with 47 employees. 43 years ago, my husband Harold thought my printing dreams were a passing whim. He couldn't have been more wrong. We filled our modest riverside home with rescued German shepherds. And when our son Garland was 16, Harold died suddenly of a heart attack. I threw myself into the business, working 12-hour days and sleeping on a cot in the office. I tried to make up for my absence in Garland's life by giving him luxuries, cars, gadgets, but now I realize I was trying to buy forgiveness. Garland went into finance in college and began calling only when his money ran out. Then he met Daphne, beautiful, smart, and, I learned later, calculating. She eyed my antiques and asked probing questions about the business as if gauging its value, not out of curiosity. They married lavishly, and I paid every penny, hoping the new in-laws would warm to me. Instead, they pulled away. Visits dwindled. Garland's calls shortened. Even as I gained a granddaughter, Prue, our relationship remained strained. Daphne resented. The influence I had on Prue calls decreased to excuses like, "You spoil her too much." And Garland backed her. Then came the real test. Daphne announced they'd found a perfect mansion, Victorian, 6 bedrooms, pool, tennis court, quoted at a 7-figure price tag. She hinted I wasn't contributing. I saw an opportunity. Instead of fighting for relevance, I'd give the house to Garland and Prue. But I couldn't gift it outright. I need control during my lifetime. I arranged with my lawyer friend Mort to buy it in my name, let them live. They're rent-free, and leave it to Garland in my will. At dinner, Daphne smiled wide. Garland smiled tight and asked why so complicated. I explained the plan. He accepted. I paid cash. Mort handled the paperwork. They moved in with Prue in June. And for the first few months, it worked. Happier calls, dinners, fond discussions of business strategy. Prue showed off her new room and I felt needed again. But old wounds reopened. What began as gratitude turned to tension. Garland said I was controlling. Daphne complained the house wasn't theirs. The warmth faded. Now, every morning at 5:30, I wake with stiff joints but clear thoughts, preparing for another day at Baxter Printing. I'm a grandmother, a widow, a businesswoman navigating the most delicate family dynamics of my life. I've built much, but in the end, the foundations of love, pride, and forgiveness are far more fragile than any house or company. Daphne complained that I was setting my own rules in their house, though I only occasionally made remarks about particularly extravagant spending. "Mom, you gave us this house, didn't you? So do you keep interfering with how we furnish it?" Garland said after I questioned the need to replace perfectly serviceable kitchen appliances with new ones twice as expensive. "I didn't give you a house, Garland. I let you live in my house for free. There's a difference." I replied calmly. "What difference does it make? It will be ours anyway." Afterwards, he paused, realizing he'd said too much. "After I'm dead, you mean? Take your time, son. I'm not going to die yet." After that conversation, our relationship cooled again. Dinner invitations became less frequent. When I came over, Garland was often busy at work, and Daphne would find an excuse to leave. Only Prue was always genuinely happy to see me. She grew into a beautiful, intelligent girl who, to her parents' displeasure, often consulted me on important matters. As the years passed, I continued to run Baxter Printing. although many in my position would have retired long ago. Business was my passion, my raison d'etre. I introduced new technologies, expanded my services, found new clients. Reed was indispensable. He made the day-to-day operations run smoothly, while I dealt with strategic issues. Garland and Daphne, meanwhile, were turning the house into a palace. Without my knowledge or consent, they'd undertaken a huge renovation. They'd torn down several walls to enlarge the living room, completely remodeled the bathrooms, replaced the parquet with marble in the hallway. The bills I was paying were mounting. When I tried to discuss it with Garland, he accused me of being stingy. "You've got money to spare, and you're counting every dime we spend on the house. A house that will still be ours." "It's my money, Garland. I earned it with me labor. And as long as I live, I'll decide what I spend it on." Prue graduated from college and got a job in customer service for a large company. She could have worked at Baxter Printing. I offered it to her more than once, but Garland and Daphne were adamantly opposed. She should make her career on her own, not by proxy, Daphne said, though I suspected the real reason was something else. They were afraid of my influence over their daughter. Despite her parents' resistance, Prue often stopped by my house after work. We drank tea, discussed books, movies, world events. She was the only bright spot in my relationship with my son's family. Sometimes she would talk about the situation at home, how the parents sagged over money, how Daphne demanded more and more expensive things, how Garland snapped at his daughter when her had problems at work. "Grandma Ellie, sometimes I think you're the only normal person in our family," she once said. "Daddy and Mommy only talk about money, status, what people will say. And you talk about what's really important. Feelings, the meaning of life, finding your calling." Those words touched me to the core. Maybe I had done something right after all. Maybe my granddaughter grew up different from her parents. On my 70th birthday, Garland and Daphne threw a big reception at their house. All the important people of the city were invited: politicians, businessmen, public figures. Daphne shone as a hostess, showing the guests luxurious interiors, bragging about the antique furniture and art collection which they began to collect. Garland talked about his successes in investing, new clients, promising projects. I sat at the head of the table accepting congratulations and gifts, smiling and thanking. But a strange feeling of alienation was growing inside me. This was not my holiday. It was their performance in which I was given the role of an honorable exhibit. "Look at what a successful mother-father-in-law we have. She created a business from scratch. She's still working in her 70s. After that evening, I began to visit Garland and Daphne's house less often. They didn't mind. They even seemed to feel better without my presence. Prue still came to see me, but now secretly without letting my parents know. "They're not going to be happy anyway, so why make them nervous?" she said. I continued to pay all the bills related to the house, taxes, utilities, repairs. The amounts were growing every month. Daphne was constantly remodeling, updating, improving. Garland silently supported his wife, sometimes calling me only to inform me of new expenses. Deep down, I knew I'd made a mistake. My generous gesture had brought no love, respect, or gratitude. On the contrary, it reinforced the worst character traits of my son and his wife: greed, ingratitude, and a sense of superiority. But I didn't know how to remedy the situation without hurting Prue, who considered this house her home. It had been 7 years since I'd bought the house for Garland and his family. 7 years full of disappointments, but also little joys, mostly related to Prue. My granddaughter has grown into an amazing young woman. She's 23 now, graduated from college with a degree in communications and works in customer service for some technology company. Not the most distinguished career, but Prue assures me it's temporary. She has plans, ambitions, dreams, all the things I never got to instill in her father. We see each other about once every 2 weeks. Usually, she comes over to my house after work. I cook dinner. Yes, at 77, I still do just fine in the kitchen. Open a bottle of good wine and we talk about books, about movies, about politics, about her work, about my business. Sometimes if I don't have the energy to cook, we order food from a restaurant or go out to dinner. Garland and Daphne know about these meetings, but pretend it doesn't concern them. My son stopped caring about my life a long time ago, and his wife doesn't even care. The only thing they care about is my money, or rather, how to get more of it as soon as possible. The house I bought for them is in constant need of improvements. At least that's what they say. They need a new heated swimming pool. They need to replace all the plumbing with Italian fixtures. They need to redo the conservatory. I've stopped getting into the details. I just pay the bills Garland sends me. It's easier than arguing and listening to him accuse me of being stingy and callous. Reed, my manager, has told me more than once that I'm too nice to them. Mrs. Baxter, they're taking advantage of your generosity, he said recently as I was signing another check for roof repairs. It's just a business decision, Reed, I replied. Real estate in that neighborhood is only going up in value. All these improvements are driving up the value of the house. But we both knew it was an excuse. I had long ago stopped treating the house as an investment. Rather, it was a form of payoff. I was paying money so I wouldn't feel guilty about not being a good enough mother, or maybe to have the right to see my granddaughter. I don't know which Isidore. My own life hasn't changed much over the years. I still run Baxter Printing, although I'm not in the office every day anymore. I control many processes remotely, trusting Reed to solve current issues. He doesn't let me down. The print shop is thriving, customers are happy, and profits are growing steadily. On the days when I dock them to the office, the employees greet me with respect, bordering on fear. No, I have a reputation for being a tough boss. Well, you can't build a successful business without it. Not all decisions are popular, but someone has to make them. At home, I spend time mostly alone. I read, watch documentaries, sometimes go to the theater or to a classical music concert. I don't have many friends. Most of my old buddies are either dead or have moved closer to their kids in Florida or Arizona. The only one left is Mort, my trusty lawyer and counselor. We sometimes have dinner together, reminisce about our youth, discuss the news. He's a widower. I'm a widow, seemingly a perfect match. But there have never been romantic feelings between us. Only a strong friendship test over decades. Last month, I was sent another bill, this time for a complete reconstruction of the courtyard facade. The amount was astronomical, even by my standards. I called Garland to get the details. Mom, it's necessary, he said irritably, as if I'd already turned him down. There's a wall started leaking in there because of improper drainage. If we don't make the repairs now, it will be even more expensive later. I understand the need for repairs, Garland, but why is a complete rebuild of the terrace included in the estimate? It has nothing to do with the leak. If you're going to renovate, you should do it all at once so you don't have to go back on it. You're a businesswoman. You must realize it's cheaper to do it all at once. Cheaper for who? For me, this repair will cost the amount that could buy an apartment in the center of the city. Here we go again, he sighed. Mum, if you feel sorry for the money, just say so. We'll manage on our own somehow. I knew it was a bluff. They didn't have that kind of money. Garland made good money, but he and Daphne spent most of it on maintaining a lifestyle that fit their idea of status. Expensive restaurants, designer clothes, country club memberships, annual trips to Europe. They wouldn't scrape together enough for a major home renovation. I'm not saying I'm short on money, Garland. I just want to know exactly what I'm spending it on. That's a normal desire, don't you think? If you don't trust me, come and see for yourself, he said with a challenge in his voice, clearly not expecting me to accept the invitation. Okay, I'll come this Saturday. Saturday? He was clearly confused. We weekend have had plans. What plans, Garland? I mean, you just asked me to come. Yeah, but okay, fine. Come over on Saturday. Just let me know exactly what time so we'll be home. I'll call before I leave, I said, and hung up. Putting the phone down, I wondered. Something in my son's voice made me wary. He clearly didn't want me to come over, but had been forced to agree, cornering himself with his own suggestion. What's going on out there? Are they hiding something from me? I decided not to call before I left. I'd show up unannounced, see how. There Riley lived in my house, and I'd spend time with Prue. It had been a long time since the three of us had seen each other, and she usually came alone. I'd been busy all week. We were starting up a new digital printing line, and there were a lot of details to manage. Reed was on top of things as always, but some issues required my direct involvement. By Friday, I was exhausted but satisfied. Everything was going according to plan. The first test orders had been completed successfully, and the customers were happy with the quality. Saturday morning, I woke up with the firm intention of going to Garland. But first I called Prue. I wanted to meet Kesha. She'd be home. Grandma Ellie, how nice to hear from you. Her voice sounded surprised and happy. You don't call much on the weekends. Thought I'd check on you. Are you home today? Yeah. I'm not going anywhere all day. Why? I wanted to come over to your place to see that famous renovation your dad's always talking about. Really? That would be great. It's been a long time since you've been to our place. When are you coming? About 3:00. I think. Will your parents be home? A pause followed. Actually, no. They're having some kind of party at the country club. They're going away all day. Why, that was it. Garland had lied to me. They didn't have any plans for Saturday. He just didn't want me to come. That's okay. I'll still come over. Want to spend time with you. Great. I'll cook something delicious. Or should we order delivery? Let me bring something from your favorite Thai restaurant. Oh, you remember? I loved their green curry with shrimp. Of course, I remember. See you later, darling. I ended the conversation with a smile. Well, even better. We'll socialize with Prue without her parents' supervision. And I'd be able to look around the house anyway. The day was warm and sunny. Perfect for a trip out of town. I wore a light silk dress, a wide-brimmed straw hat, and comfortable but elegant low-heeled shoes. Age had taught me to appreciate comfort, but that didn't mean I had to sacrifice style. The driver was already waiting for me downstairs. On the way, I stopped at a Thai restaurant and ordered Prue's favorite dishes. I placed the bags of food next to me on the seat and leaned back, enjoying the ride. Outside the window, the city scenery floated by, gradually changing to the suburbs. I rarely got out of the city centre. My life revolved around work and home. Sud trip was an adventure of sorts. When we pulled into the neighborhood where Garland lived, I couldn't help but admire it. The neighborhood breathed wealth and prosperity. Manicured lawns, luxurious mansions, expensive cars in the driveways. My son had always aspired to such a life. Well, now he had everything he dreamed of thanks to me. The thought was bitter, but I pushed it away. This is no time for regrets. Today, I'm just a grandmother on her way to visit her granddaughter and a homeowner who wants to see how her property is being used. Nothing more. that something was wrong. As I pulled up to the house, I noticed many cars parked along the street. The music was blaring so loud that it could be heard, even in the car with the windows closed. There was obviously some kind of party going on at the house. The driver stopped at the gate of the mansion. I asked him to wait. I didn't know how long I'd be inside. I got out of the car, grabbed bags of food, and headed toward the house. With each step down the driveway, the music grew louder and louder, adding sounds of laughter, conversations, and clinking glasses. What's going on? Prue had said her parents were going to a country club instead of having a party at home. I walked up the steps and rang the doorbell. No one answered, not surprising with all the noise. I rang again longer and knocked for good measure. Finally, the door opened and Garland appeared on the doorstep, wearing an expensive suit, a glass of champagne in his hand, clearly surprised and not particularly happy to see me, Mom. His face reflected. First surprise, then annoyance. What are you doing here? I told you I was coming today. We made a deal, remember? Yeah, but he looked over his shoulder as if looking for support or an excuse. You didn't tell me exactly what time you were coming. I called Prue this morning. She said you and Daphne were supposed to be at the country club. Garland frowned. We had a change of plans. We decided to have a small reception for my business associates. You see, it's not a very convenient time for a visit. Not very convenient. I felt a wave of anger rising in me. I've come to my own home, Garland. To a house I bought and pay all the bills for. And you're telling me this is an inconvenient time? His face turned purple. Are you starting that again? Yes, it's technically your house, but we live here. We have our own lives, our own plans. You can't just barge in unannounced, breaking in your own home. I was stunned. Garland, what is going on with you? When did you become so like what? Mum, finish your sentence. Ungrateful. Heartless. Go ahead, say it. You always thought I wasn't good enough. Not successful enough. All my life I've been in your shadow. The great Eleanor Baxter. Businesswoman of the Year. The most successful woman on Enterprise. His voice caught the attention of the guests. A few people in evening gowns looked out into the lobby with curiosity. I spotted Daphne among them, who immediately disappeared. Back into the living room when she saw me. Garland, I didn't want to make a scene in front of your guests. I just wanted to spend time with Prue and look at the renovations y'all keep talking about. Prue's not home, he retorted. She's gone to a friend's house. And as for the renovations, yes, they're well underway, and it's costing money. A lot of money. With those words, he pulled a folded piece of paper from the inside pocket of his jacket and held it out to me. It was an invoice from the construction company for an amount that took my breath away. What is this? We didn't discuss such expenses. We don't discuss much at all these days, Mom. You just send money and think you've done your duty as a mother. That's not fair, Garland. I've always been there for you when you needed me. Around? He grinned bitterly. You've been around your print. Shop, with your customers, with your employees, with your papers, but not with me. Never with me. I felt tears come to my eyes, but held back. I didn't want to cry on the doorstep of my own home. I did the best I could, Garland. I was alone. I had to provide for both of us. And now you need to provide for this house. He waved the bill in front of my face. Or maybe you'll finally admit that the house has been ours in fact for a long time. And I sue it to us. Then we'll pay all the costs ourselves. You know very well you don't have that kind of money, Garland. You live beyond your means. You always have. But you have. You're swimming in money, living in luxury. And we have to scourge around begging you for every dime. I couldn't believe my ears. Begging. They lived in one of the most expensive houses in town. Paid for entirely by me. Never paid a dime for utilities, taxes, insurance, and he dares talk about scourging. Garland, you're being unfair. I've given you everything I could. Except your time and attention. He folded the bill and slipped it back into his pocket. You know what, Mom? If you want to come into this house tonight, pay first, and then I'll let you in. I froze, not believing my ears. My son was demanding payment for me to enter my own house. What did you say? You heard me. Pay first for the renovations, the venue, furniture, for everything we've planned. And then you're welcome. In the meantime, I'm sorry. We have company. He started to close the door, but I stopped it with my hand. Wait, where's Prue? You said she's at a friend's house, but she promised she'd be home. We agreed to meet up. She changed plans. Garland didn't look me in the eye. You know how it is with young people. Fickle, unreliable. You and her are like that. I don't believe you. Let me talk to her. She's not here, Mom, and she won't be until tonight. So, why don't you come back another time? Or will you pay the bill right away, and we'll forget this unpleasant conversation? Daphne appeared beside him, showing support for her husband with her holy appearance. Her cold gaze slid over me like a nuisance. Eleanor, we have important guests, potential clients of Garland. You don't want to ruin his deal, do you? I want to see my granddaughter, I said firmly. And I want to see the house you're demanding. Such sums to repair. Prue really isn't though. Daphne smiled a fake smile. And as for the repairs, we can send you pictures or set up a video call at a more appropriate time. Of course, I felt like I'd been kicked in the butt. They were acting like full-fledged hosts, and I was an unwelcome guest, a nuisance in their perfect life. You're forgetting who I am, I said quietly but firmly. I'm not just your mother or mother-in-law. I am the owner of this house. And if you keep this up, I may renegotiate our arrangements. Threatening us, Mother. Garland grinned, but fear flashed in his eyes. What are you going to do? Throw us out on Thess Street? I can imagine the headlines. Ruthless businesswoman throws son out o' foam. That wouldn't be good for the reputation of Baxter Printing, don't you think? Daphne put a hand on his shoulder as if restraining him. Garland, don't. Eleanor just picked a bad time to visit. We're all a little worked up about the guests. Let's discuss it later. Okay. I looked at both of them and saw nothing but falseness. Garland, my son, flesh of my flesh, had become a stranger. A manwo stood on the doorstep of my own home and demanded money for me to enter. A man who may have even lied to me about whereabouts of my granddaughter. You know what? You don't have to. I straightened proudly, clutching the bags of food I brought for Prue. I won't interfere with your party. Tell Pooh when she gets back that I stopped by, and that I brought her favorite curry. With those words, I held out the bags to Garland. But he didn't take them, so I had to set them on the porch. One more thing, Garland, I added, already turning to leave. Don't send me any more bills. Not for repairs or anything else. I wouldn't pay any more. I didn't look back as I walked down the steps. I didn't want to see the look on their faces, triumphant or scared. It didn't matter anymore. I walked to the car, keeping my back straight, head held high. It was until I was inside the car that I let myself exhale. Where to now, ma'am? The driver asked. Home, I replied shortly. And turn the music up, please. On the way home, I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Didn't throw a tantrum. I just stared out the window and thought about how Garland and I had come to this. When had my little boy, who had held me so tightly in his arms, turned into this cold, calculating man? Was it my fault? Maybe if I'd spent more time with him, if I hadn't been so consumed with work, but that's all in the past. You can't change what's already happened. You can only decide what to do next. When we pulled up to my house, modest comparetto garlands. Mansion, but cozy and all mine. I had already made my decision. I went up to the apartment, kicked off my shoes, took off my hat, and poured myself a glass of red wine. I took a big sip, feeling the warmth spreading through my body. Then she went to the window and took a long look at the city below. The lights were beginning to come on. Evening was coming. The Enneprezo was getting ready for the night. I took my time. I showered first, washing off not only the dust of the road, but what seemed to be all the negativity of the day. Then I put on a homemade suit, comfortable but elegant. I prepared a light dinner, a salad of fresh vegetables and a piece of baked fish. She ate slowly, enjoying the peace and quiet of her home. Only then did she pick up the telephone and dial the number she knew by heart. Mort Stafford here. My old friend's voice sounded as confident and calm as it had 40 years ago when we first met. Mort, this is Eleanor. I apologize for calling on your day off. Ellie. There was a smile in his voice. I'll always have time for you. You know that. Did something happen? Yes, something's come up. I took a deep breath. I need to revise my will and deeds to the Garland house. A pause followed. Mort wasn't just my lawyer. He was my friend who knew the entire history of my relationship with my son. I see, he said finally. What happened? It's a long story. I'd rather discuss it in person. Of course. Would you like me to come to your place? If it's not too much trouble. Not at all. I'll be there in 30 minutes. Thanks, Mort. I'll make coffee. I hung up the phone and felt strangely relieved. The decision had been made. Now all that was left to do was act. While I waited for Mort, I thought about Prue. Where had she really been today? Was she really at a friend's house as Garland had claimed? Or had Hellied to me, and she'd been home? Maybe even heard our conversation. I needed to contact her, make sure she was okay. Buffets later. Legal matters needed to be sorted out first. I brewed coffee. Strong, flavorful, just the way Mort liked it. I got a bottle of good cognac from the bar. A little alcohol wouldn't hurt on a night like this. I set the cups and glasses on the coffee table in the living room. The doorbell rang exactly. 30 minutes later. Mort was always punctual. I opened the door and saw my old friend, tall, thin, with grey hair and shrewd eyes. Despite the day off, he was wearing a suit, though no tie. Ellie. He hugged me lightly in greeting. You look tired. It's been a long day. I smiled, letting him into the apartment. Thanks for coming on such short notice. Any time for you. He walked into the living room and sat in the chair that was tacitly considered his. Mort was often at my house on business and friendship matters. So, what happened with Garland this time? I poured coffee into cups, added a little milk to mine, to his. No, he always drank black. Then I poured some brandy into the glasses and sat down across from him. He wouldn't let me in the house, I said bluntly. Into the house I bought. The one I pay all the bills for said. Pay first, and then I'll let you in. Mort raised his eyebrows. Really? And what caused such a reaction? They threw some kind of party for Garland's business associates, he said. I showed up unannounced. I wanted to see Prue and see what my money was being used for. Garland was furious. Said I was controlling their lives, that they were begging from me. Mort shook his head, astonishing in gratitude. That's notable. He charged me a bill for some new repairs, a huge sum we hadn't even discussed, and hinted that if I didn't pay it, I might not even try to enter the house. Into your own house. Mort sipped his coffee. Legally, that's absurd. You realize you're the full owner. You can go in there any time you want. We can get the police involved if I have to. I don't want to bring it to that, Mort. I don't want a public scandal, but I don't intend to go on like this either. What do you want to do? I took a sip of brandy, feeling a hot wave roll down my throat. I want to change the will to exclude the house from Garland's inheritance. Mort nodded as if he'd expected that. That is possible. The house belongs to you completely. You can dispose of it as you see fit. But what do you plan to do with it? Haven't decided yet. Maybe sell it. Maybe give it to charity. Maybe leave it to Prue if she's not like her parents. What about a stake in the business? You said you wanted to leave him a controlling interest in Baxter Printing. That needs to be reconsidered too. I shook my head. I can't trust him with my life's work. He'll ruin it in a couple years. Sell it off piecemeal. Dissolve the team I've spent decades assembling. Ellie. Mort looked at me carefully. Are you sure you're not making this decision on emotion? What happened today is certainly outrageous. But maybe you should cool down a bit before taking such drastic measures. I'm not being heated, Mort. I met his gaze. Today's incident is just the last straw. Years of ingratitude, manipulation, extortion. I thought that by buying them a house I could mend the relationship. But it's only gotten worse. They take my generosity for granted as their earned privilege. That will never change. Mort sighed. I understand, and I'll support whatever decision you make. But let's still take our time. I'll prepare a draft of a new will, and we'll discuss the details. In the meantime, maybe you should talk to Prue. Get her side of the story. You're right. I nodded. I'll talk to Prue first. If she's the only one in that family I can still trust. Although I am not even sure about that right now. Don't judge her by her parents, Mort said softly. She always seemed like a sensible girl to me. Yes, she is. At least I hope so. We talked with Mort for a long time more about the legalities, the possible ramifications, the different options. He was, as always, judicious and fair, not taking sides unconditionally, not even mine. That's why I appreciated him for his ability to see the situation objectively. When he left, promising to contact me in a couple of days with the finished documents, I was alone in my quiet apartment. Fatigue came over me like a heavy blanket, but despite all the day's turmoil, I felt strangely relieved. It was as if I had gotten rid of a weight I had been carrying for years. I no longer had to endure Garland's ingratitude. I didn't have to pay for his lavish life. I didn't have to pretend everything was okay when it was really not okay. I was free, and that freedom, though bitter, was a real relief. I woke up early as usual. The habit of getting up at 5:30 doesn't fade with age, only strengthens. The sun was barely beginning to rise above the horizon, coloring the sky a soft pink. A new day, a new beginning. Yesterday's conversation with Mort had left me feeling determined. I lay awake long into the night, replaying the scene outside Garland's house. His words, the look on his face. Pay first, and then he'll let you in. The phrase echoed in my head, causing almost physical pain. How could my own son say such a thing? But the morning brought clarity. I was no longer angry, no longer feeling resentment or frustration. I just knew what needed to be done, and I was ready to act. After breakfast, I called Mort. Good morning, Ellie. His voice sounded cheerful despite the early hour. Are you all right? Quite, I replied. And I've made my decision. I don't want to wait, Mort. I want to formally revoke permission for Garland and his family to live in my house today.